If you like to watch Survivor, and when the show ends, you really want to talk about it with like-minded friends. It might be hard to find some, but don't you shed a tear. Check out the Purple Rock Podcast, and this is what you'll hear. John will make some dumb jokes, and he likes to yell and curse. And if they're not available, the backup hosts are so much worse. We'll spend the whole time being jerks and telling you you're wrong. So we found a nice person to sing you our theme song. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Purple Rock Podcast. I'm back as your host, Andy, and with me this week is Emma, who many have described as like John, but fun to be around.
It's true, both in that people have said that and that it's an accurate thing to say. And
I figured I'd start this week's podcast by referencing the best moment of the episode, and then we'll spend the rest of it talking about the not best stuff. Let's start with the big thing, because I was actually interested seeing a bit of your reaction. I think it was like a live reaction to this episode, because you were able to do that.
Indeed.
From a live taping.
Well, I mean, the show wasn't a live taping.
Right. Yeah, you weren't out on the island.
A live viewing, a live event.
That's right. How much faith did you have in that, those four, the Goat Army, were going to stick together and make a move heading into Tribal Council?
I mean, until Noura forgot how simple math worked, it seemed, like a pretty, I don't want to say foolproof, because I think we saw it.
Literally, it was not foolproof. We know that for sure.
Indeed. But I think a large aspect of it, and I've seen other people express this opinion, is that we got kind of that classic, dominant alliance, cocky downfall at it seemed like, where they were so sure, especially to have Lauren once again be like, oh, but Elaine isn't strategic, I'm like, I know her advantage was impossible to misplay, but did you really learn nothing from that tribal council? So it sort of seemed like they were setting up the pins to, have one of them get knocked down, and then Noura just couldn't figure out how 2 and 2 is smaller than 4. And then and Dean, just wants to hang with his bros.
Because, yeah, you seemed legit angry about Dean. In some ways, I was like, bravo to you for finding a way to care. Because, yeah, the audacity of hope that, the being angry seemed to suggest. Because for me, I was like, they're gonna fuck this up. The whole time, I was like, they're gonna, not the whole time, you're right. When they were getting that arrogant edit, I was like, oh, maybe these guys actually will fall. Because that is an incredibly dumb thing to say. You don't need to be highly skilled to have an advantage go your way in this game. I know this because I just saw Karishma do it successfully, a week ago, for them a couple of days ago. So, your idea of, oh, this person isn't good enough to do that, you don't have to be. To take that idea, anybody could have a thing that could disrupt you at some time. So that made me feel like maybe it could happen. I will say, once Lauren won immunity, my faith in things going the way that they were suggesting was starting to falter. But I guess I was still holding out some hope that maybe the target would move off Tommy. Maybe they'll go to Dan, in which case maybe I'd feel like it could be successful again. But once we get the scene of both, Noura struggling with the concept that one extra vote will not do anything against 2 and 2 votes, and, having to line up leads and still not be able to figure it out. And then we get, Tommy and Lauren both noticing, hey, Dean and Noura have been missing. I was like, all right, this isn't going to happen. To the degree where, when my wife asked me when we're heading into commercials, who's going home, frequently a question she asks. Not, I think, because she feels like I have any, great knowledge in that respect. Check my predictions. But just a thing to ask. I was like, I think it's Elaine. And I thought it was because Noura was going to fuck it up. I thought she was going to throw a vote to Dan, and that other group, spooked by, what she'd been already doing, was putting 4 votes on Elaine. So, by the time Dean screws things up, I was just like, yeah, it was going to be something.
Well, I think, if, it's my turn to talk now after that, after you asked me a question and then talked for 2 minutes straight, I mean, anger, I know I literally tweeted I'm so mad at him, but it's and obviously you can't read tone through text, but I think, after all we've been through this season, I think anger in a situation like this is perhaps too strong of a term. But it's more just like, of all the way, now, this is weird because, Noura not understanding how to take advantage of a 2-2 split like that is a dumb way for this to fail. But it's just, I think it was just such a dumb way for the plan to not go through, because it's just, I don't think it makes sense for him. And I know there have been arguments the other way, but I think, sure, he thinks Tommy is his closest ally, I guess, but like, man, how dense does he must be to not realize that he is like 5th on Tommy's list, if that, And here's the thing too, like there's a lot of like, oh, well now Tommy will owe him because Dean helped him out. If anyone should know that someone saving you from a vote does not gain that person's loyalty the next vote, it's fucking Dean, who could have given Kelly a goddamn heads up and saved us all a world of pain. So I just think it was a dumb way for that to happen. It was it didn't even really make, like, really, even though he brought it up and like people are like, oh, people are blaming Noura for being crazy, but Dean's the one who told Tommy, like he sort of quietly told him, which in theory shouldn't have done anything. Like Tommy didn't have an idol, and then Noura freaked out and backtracked and all of that. And that is what changed it. Like Dean could just say like, oh, it's you. And well, I guess, he would have, Dean voting that way, would have been enough. But it's also like, you can just not say it and just vote the way they want. It'll be a tie, then there's 5 versus the 3 and you're fine. And it's not like this whole kerfuffle.
So are we doing a thing like each time where we'll just count how long the person ahead of us talked and bring it up? Because,
We are when someone asks the question and then has a monologue, not when someone answers the question.
I don't really remember asking you a question, so we're going to have to go to the tape on that one. Now, look, I don't want to deny the idea that all of this is Dean being an idiot. That is the Occam's razor here. I'm not going to go too far against that. I think maybe some people are expecting it because of my tweet. The one thing I'll say, like, irrespective of Dean, if a player decided, you know what, I don't know if I can trust Noura to successfully pull this out and I need to pull the ripcord, I kind of sympathize with that because, again, I don't know that any of them went into tribal council thinking, no, we're good. Nora's good now. Like, there is a non-zero chance that she was still arguing for the need to split this vote, the last time they talked to her. So, if that's it, and the thing is, we won't know that's it. Like, I won't believe either of them in exit interviews, what they tell me. I like, whatever Noura says, I will take as a complete fiction. Just in general, it's how I treated Debbie. It's the same way. And, Dean has not struck me as a person with an accurate assessment of his placement in this game or anything like that. So it's like, it's not like, again, maybe if a third party, like if like Elaine comes out and be like, oh no, we had no idea what Noura was going to do, then I might be like, okay, well, I guess then for Dean trying to save some kind of favor and position with Tommy is, I still don't know what that gets him, though, is the thing.
Yeah, that's why I think him just quietly doing it, taking part in the split vote they were supposed to, sure, it's a 3-3 tie, then things will blow up. He can say, like, no, I voted with you guys, they wanted to do this. Even if he doesn't, like, then say it's split between, it would be 3 on Tommy and, 3 on either Noura or Karishma. I'm sorry, Elaine or Karishma. Let's assume Karishma because he knows Elaine has the idol. Then, like, the Vokai and Dean are just gonna vote out Karishma. Like, it would be fine.
Yeah, and it's like, what he's doing is positioning himself, as most people say, to be the 5th of the 4. But, like, there's room to maneuver. Like, I don't really think that 4 is the final 4. If for no other reason that this is a season of people who like to take out targets. And, those 4 have more targets within them than the remaining 3 do. So, like, yeah, there's room to move, but it's like, in a spot that's much harder to win. And for
Right,
Dean,
exactly.
I would just say he doesn't realize that. There's no way Dean recognizes that he is in a tougher position to win in a final situation against anybody versus anybody, because he, of course, is still the person who believes himself, not only believes himself a challenge threat, but believes that people believe he is a challenge threat against all odds and all evidence to the contrary. So, like, yeah, again, I'm not going to really question too hard that Dean was being stupid in this. I'm just saying, like, it was probably destined to fail no matter what, because that's what happens when you try to align with Noura's.
Yeah, which is why and I know you're with me on this because you have a whole thing planned, but why, as much as like Noura has kind of flipped back around to actually being entertaining, I still, from a gameplay standpoint, say you vote that person out the soonest you realize that they're like unpredictable and crazy. Like, cause yes, in this case, it helps out Lauren and Jan and a lot of the people who did vote out Molly, but it, very almost didn't because she was so upset about not being taken on the family reward, like there's every opportunity in the future too for Noura to flip out and ruin their game. And that's what, like, yes, maybe a Molly or some, would be more strategic, but you can also tell. And if you're able to convince people that she's the next Parvati at day 6, you can do that at day 27.
Yeah, no, I will always say, like, people that are like Noura, they have to go.
Yeah.
It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the trouble. The most dangerous thing in Survivor is having no understanding of how somebody will work. Obviously, everybody is unpredictable to some level. The Survivor graveyard is littered with people who thought they knew what somebody was going to do. They didn't. But, like, Noura is the ultimate wild card to the point where, this started with her ranting and raving, calling, Karishma useless to her face and saying she wants to team up. This is her thing, and she wants to get out Tommy. And then she was the chink in the armor. She was the flaw in this whole thing. It even seemed like Dean was down for Tommy. Like, he didn't even try to be like, oh, no, I think it should be Dan. He was just like, okay, Tommy, cool, yeah, that's what we should do. Yeah, we don't know how legitimate that is.
I was going to say, the problem is the way he so easily just told it makes me wonder, like, was he really that in on it, I think he was more in on it when it was Lauren.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think
sure.
if Lauren wasn't immune, I think that the plan either works or Noura messes it up, but I don't think Dean messes it up.
I will say, in a slight, not really defense of Dean, but I guess something, is the moment when he is trying to talk to Noura, which, gosh, if that was me, like, I would have gone out of my mind. This is exactly why I can't be a teacher. Like, I would have just lost it. But when he's like, oh, well, aren't you worried Karishma will flip? Which, sidebar, to fucking who? But, like, Dean's like, to be frank, I'm most worried about you.
Yeah.
Like, that was a fun moment and a fair assessment of the situation.
Yeah, actually, I liked both of the things he said in that, but both is you can't actually say that to me.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, no, you're the problem. Like, no, I don't think Karishma's gonna flip. She needs this. I don't think Elaine's gonna flip. She needs this. You're the only one, and again, she and Dean were the only ones that really had anything else other than this going on.
Right.
And then the other thing he says to her is when she's like, but what about this? It's like, yeah, but what does one do for us? Like, in a are you stupid type way? And it's like, you shouldn't do that, but man, do I get it.
Indeed,
because being around her is exhausting, and they are exhausted. Like, I don't know how you would find the reserves to deal with somebody like that in those deprivation situations, much less after an afternoon of Noura just ranting and raving, with the funny edit that they gave us for it. Just be like, one is less than two. What are we still talking about here? Yeah,
I think I'd be annoyed if it was one of those day game survivors that people do. I'd be like, how do you not get that? And so I can't imagine after not sleeping and dealing with her for that long. I just don't have that level of patience.
And again, and so a player like Dean who has no discernible skills, it's going to be even harder.
He can kind of throw basketballs, just not as good as Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't teach height.
Unless you're Mike Hirsch.
I think he actually knows a little bit of like the numbers. He just doesn't have the tact, right? Because like even early in the season, like his debut to us as an entity was, the correct assessment. Like, let's just split the numbers. It was just stupid because there was nobody else to pin it on.
Yeah, that was great. Do you think the reason why he cried every day after high school was because he was realizing he wasn't going to grow anymore?
It's possible. Or every day he was trying to convince his friend Kyrie that the world was indeed round.
It's exactly the same, but that's how he was able to like last as long as he did with Noura, because he was used to having these kind of conversations.
No,
It's
Kyrie.
Like, no, it's been proven.
Third eye. There is a circumference it is round. Why does nobody understand? I'm glad we can laugh about people's high school pain. Let's do a little bit more of that later. But like, Noura was entertaining. Like, I will say, like, 100%, she should be the first boot. People like that should always be the first boot, and I have no sympathy for them once they get burned later from that fact. But she's been bringing a lot of entertainment. Like, her rant was probably the highlight of the episode.
Yeah, like, without Noura, and Karishma, we can get into that later, but, like, this episode, despite having a disappointing ending for, I think, most of the audience, and the run-up to it was, delightful. Like, I was actually now, granted, I was in, like, a group of 400 people, so we were, like, cheering and booing and stuff, so that always makes it more fun. But, I was having a good time for a while there, and that was refreshing.
Yeah. And, like, let's get into, like, why ultimately this fails. Is it Dean's fault? Is it Nora's fault? Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think more in general, why we don't see very often, the goats, whatever you want to call it, the people on the bottom get together and overthrow the dominant players of the game, even when there are clear opportunities to do so. And I think this episode really highlighted why. Often you're on the bottom for a reason.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just circumstance. Sometimes, you came in, less numbers or whatever. But a lot of it is because you suck at Survivor. And to expect people like Noura, like Dean, like Karishma, frankly like Elaine, to really, like, take over, it's like, it might be beyond their skill set. And we saw it here, like, because, like, for this to work, and yeah, I think it was in all their best interest, like, Noura and Karishma had to get along. Noura hates Karishma. Like, nobody's been ragging on Karishma more since the merge, I don't think, than Noura, who just can't stand anybody who doesn't, like, have her, like, work ethic, which apparently entails, like, cleaning the well, which was, like, a secret scene.
Imagine caring about tribe work ethic post-merge in the year of our Lord 2019.
Yeah, and, like, it's one of those things like, hey, you know what, that might help. There's probably a lot of bugs in there. But at the same time, it's like, that's fake hustle. That's the sort of people that are all like, why is nobody on my work ethic level? It's because you would never let somebody be on you. Like, this is a defining thing of your persona so that you can look down upon people. I don't know if that's what was going on with Karishma, though, because, like, even in Karishma's exits, like, it was my strategy to suck, which is never a very convincing argument for me, but we'll get into that in a bit. But it's just like, yeah, if you're pinning your hopes on, like, the worst players of the game to turn the season around for you, you're probably going to end up disappointed.
For sure, yeah, they're people are on the bottom for a reason sometimes, and some people are on, the dominating players dominate for a reason, like, yes, to a point, it's because a couple of key players weren't willing to flip, but, like, Wendell and Dom ran Go Silent because Wendell and Dom were good players,
Yep.
Like, there were maybe, like, one or two players that really prevented that, but, you also have to have better players who are there to be better at convincing people to flip. I think of Wendell, probably especially because he was more social, or Dominic were the ones at the bottom, which for a while at least Dom was. Like, maybe they convinced, Chelsea or Laurel to flip, but Kellen wasn't really flipping anyway, but, like, Michael Yerger, as, like, weirdly old beyond his years as he seemed, did not have that ability.
No, and like that season might be even a better example. It's like, oh man, why don't those guys flip? Because they suck. They have no interest in doing so, and Wendell and Dom have correctly assessed that. And frankly, like ultimately, that was probably what was happening here. As bad a look as it was for Lauren and that other fucker to be talking about how useless these people are and there's no danger presented. It turns out they were right. It turns out that, like, when given every opportunity and every signal to do so, when these, 4 people were, blowing the doors wide open, giving them a chance to do so, they still couldn't get it done because, they suck. Dean and Noura suck, and the other ones to the same degree. So it's like, I guess when you're right, you're right. I don't know. It doesn't look good to say it, but.
And to think only 6 days or so ago, Elaine, actively got rid of someone she had worked with to save Tommy.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I actually do want to talk about that when we talk about Tommy. But before that, I guess to kind of finish off the decision making, because there were some people talking about this. It's like, why would you vote out Karishma instead of Noura or Elaine?
She's a troublemaker. I think they can I think as much as Noura was freaking out, they have that on their radar, but she was still ultimately telling, rather than just still going along with it. Weird, but at least they know okay, well, if there's an insurrection in the future, she'll probably crack. And yeah, it was a little I definitely got what Rob was feeling when he was all of that to vote on Karishma. But it was just last tribal that she played an idol. I think that was kind of the craziest thing, that they, piled the votes on her that time rather than in all of this chaos in someone who, is definitely not on their side, just why it's sort of we've kind of said with Noura, but to a different extent, because the reason why Karishma is difficult is different than Noura, but is it's just not worth the effort to try to drag her to the end if she's going to keep trying to vote you out.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think Karishma actually has proven herself dangerous to a degree. Yeah. Not dangerous in she's going to win this game. That was the weirdest bit of fan fiction that was going on the past week. And, God bless you, I get why it was happening. People are just desperately searching for something. But, she's not a good player. She wasn't going to win. But, yeah, she's trying to stop you. She's trying to do things, so get rid of her. And then there's also the fact that, it's oh, she's such an easy goat. Well, she can't be a goat for everyone. So if she's not a goat for you, and frankly, she didn't feel like a goat for anybody in particular. The one person she was more of a goat for, Karishma got rid of. So it's that's a spot that you guys need. So yeah, I support that. I also support, there was an idea that maybe you put the votes on Elaine in case she doesn't play her idol and then use Karishma and Elaine's votes to get rid of Noura. But that's a lot of moving parts in that moment. Yeah, I think Karishma probably was more dangerous, especially because I wouldn't be in a rush this very vote to get rid of either Noura or Dean. I don't think they're working together next week.
Right.
After what you just saw, keep those warring factions together.
Yeah, I think, at first glance, it seems weird because it just seems wow, there was this bit, why is that the person they target? But they know Elaine has an idol. Yeah, if she plays it, they can get rid of some of the others, but it's also or they can just not vote for her and hope she plays it, which we will get into. But,
yes.
Elaine is someone they voted with. I think technically they've probably voted with Karishma, but those were in some of those very large, group things. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe they can try to pull her in if they need to, but it's probably better to just have, Noura and Dean, who are actively betraying it, and get rid of the last person that Elaine could have any hope to work with.
Right. And also, if they were better players, and who knows, maybe they would have done that. There's an argument to make to these 4 that feel like they're on the outside that they're not. You say, Janet's not in our 4. We didn't choose Janet. She was paired with Tommy.
Right.
If Tommy had won, if I had won, I totally would have chosen you, after Dan and, it's not a strong argument. But if you want to convince Noura or Elaine or Tommy that they are, still in that final 4 that you always said they were, again, there's an argument to be made there.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Pairing up for the loved one's visit does give them a little bit of an out in that way, because it's like, I mean, they got unlucky in that or maybe lucky in that the people who have been working together, but it's also like, yeah, that kind of, it's like, well, you kind of have to split who gets to take each person. You know, it's like they really each only get one person or something.
That's right. You totally would have been my second choice. I had to do this because X, and I didn't want people to be on whatever.
Yeah.
So Elaine wasted her idol, and I was wondering how you feel about that. Is it like a forgivable mistake? Was it a bad move? Was it fine? Well, what do you think?
I think it's totally forgivable. I thought it was fine for Lauren to do it last week. I think she was at less of a risk, but it was also an idol that's only good for 2 times. So, go for it. Whereas Elaine, it could come in handy. But this was a super chaotic tribal in which she knew that the original plan involved them writing her name down. Yeah. Sure, it would have been like the thing with Wentworth and Lauren last season where it would have worked out if she hadn't played it, but imagine, I mean, if they voted for her and she didn't play it, we'd all be talking about what an idiot she was. It totally makes sense to me to play it. Better safe than sorry. Just, get out there and look for it. Now that you've found one, you kind of know how they're found. Karishma's...
But everybody's found one now, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, Karishma's gone. I think it's really only Janet that's found one.
That's true, actually, because, Lauren was...
Yeah, she was gifted that.
And then, of course, the dudes can't find any.
Yeah, this season. Jamal, but he's gone.
The remaining.
Yes, indeed. It's not out of the question that she'd be able to go find one again. She has won a challenge. She was very close this time. She's... The competition now really is mostly Noura in terms of the challenges, so...
Yeah, unless they switch up what these challenges are.
Right.
I'm at the point now where I'll never fault somebody for playing one because it's worse to not. Kelly went home with 2. You brought up, Kelly and Lauren as examples of oh man, really impressive to keep them. They both went home with idols. So,
right.
No, that's not true. Right. Kelly did, but Lauren instead played hers for the eventual winner of the season. Man, if only she had gone home with that idol.
Oh man.
But she wouldn't have because it would have been the last time to play it. Moving on. That said, with all the chaos and the way they were talking and she's getting to hear the plans, I just say, this was probably the one to take the risk. And if you get voted out, just be my plan to survive in this fell apart before my very eyes.
Right.
And now it's surviving this time just buys me 3 more days. I need to find a way to buy me 6 more days. So it's I'm not faulting her for doing it, but I feel this is the time to take the risk. And not a lot of people have been as risk taking with their idols. Although again, somebody was voted out with 2. That one didn't feel like a risk so much as why would she have played one in that scenario? That she had no indication she was in danger. But it's just because I think Elaine's going home pretty soon now. That idol, I think, was it was important for her to find a way to be, to survive more than one tribal council, not just tonight. And I feel that with the chaos that was ensuing, it might be worth taking the bet that what they are talking about is either Noura or Karishma.
Yeah.
Or, frankly, Noura, I guess. She might not have had any idea that they were also talking Karishma. Although, who did she vote for?
Elaine?
She voted for Karishma, right?
I think I don't remember. I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was kind of hard to see, to be honest. So I think at that point I wasn't paying as close attention when they were showing that part, so I'm not sure. I do wonder if she should have. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this doesn't make sense because Noura had called out that Elaine had an idol, but they could have thought it was fake or whatever, or not a fake idol, but a fake story. But I wonder if, she should have pulled Malcolm in the Philippines and just pulled it out and been man, Jeff, this was crazy. Well, I know one thing tonight, I'm not going home. And then just before they all vote and then not play it, do that kind of.
Yeah, I feel this is the time to dare them to do it. And I think that they're not. They're not going to do it. I just feel like, and if they do it, well, hey, you took your shot. You needed that idol to do more than one thing. Oh, well, because like she's probably going to go home soon, and unless she finds another idol. So I don't know if surviving this one vote is that important. She needed to find a way to really turn the game around. She thought she had a chance, but Dean and or Noura screwed that up. So now you need to come up with something new. And yeah, like frankly, because now everybody knows you have an idol, you might not even have to play it next time, right? Because they might not have enough numbers to split.
Yeah.
So it's just like, again, it would be risky, but this might be one of those times to take a risk. But yeah, I mean, Elaine's not going to win the season because we all know who's going to win, right?
Apparently, the prophecy has been foretold.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because that's all anybody really wants to talk about now, is how awful it's going to be that Tommy is going to win this season. It's obvious, and it sucks, and it's the worst possible outcome somehow in a season where Dan is still a contestant. Why do you think everybody is so down on Tommy and his game?
I think it's less about Tommy, who seems like a perfectly nice, if not a little bland, tall young man. And more about what Tommy represents, because this is a season that in the pre-merge, when we all still felt hope and joy, it was such a diverse season, and the women were doing so great and finding idols, and what a cool cast of women. Like, wow, isn't Missy awesome? And then everything came crashing down, and we had 1.5 bright spots of people to root for, and it's just so clearly not what it's gonna be. And if at the beginning of the season we were told Lauren was gonna win, or because let's say since they're paired, it'd be like, wow, cool, and now that's not that appealing. And yeah, and I think, and it's just his game, it's not obvious in the way that, again, a Dom or Wendell, because it was so neck and neck, literally down to the end, with them, or even a Cochran or someone, where it's it's so obvious because of the edit, but also because of what's happening in the game. Whereas this, it's he's in the majority. And that's it. What have we really seen him do? There was, in the very beginning, we saw him making these one-on-one connections with Jack and people like that. But we're not really seeing this content with him with anybody but Lauren. And it's so interesting to me, as much as people are saying his edit is super obvious, that Janet made a point on Twitter to say that, we don't see everything, that Tommy was really defending her in the tribal council. And if in a season like this, you want us to try to feel good about the winner, wouldn't you want to show that? So that's the one thing that's giving me pause. That, and that whole moment with Sandra and Rob have been oh yeah, I think a woman is definitely gonna win. Which, why fucking torture us with that, editors? If that's not true, that's just mean. You don't have to show that. It's non-essential.
It's just showing how, Survivor now is equal grounds. Women can, find idols and everything. There's still hope. I don't know. I think you're right that's why people are down, because of their previous expectations. One thing I'll say is remove Janet, because apparently nobody believes she's going to win. Which of these women are you going to be excited about? Are you going to be excited about a Lauren victory? Tommy is still in this game because they flipped on Missy, and people loved that. I feel like that dream already died, whether Tommy is the winner or not. But I'm more interested in his game, because a lot of people are just really down on his game. He's not doing anything. He's so mediocre. I thought people loved that shit. I thought that's what everybody's all about. For season after season, people just keep talking about how all these smart fans. We're not these foolish rubes that need big moves and need look, the other person's only succeeding because they the cast is gifting them idols or because they can win these stupid little contests. No, it's really about the social plays. It's about the notes you don't hear and all these things. It's like, that's fucking Tommy. Tommy should be your god. Tommy is doing all of the things that these people keep insisting that is the real Survivor play that only the real fans can appreciate, and nobody is. Nobody is at all. And for me, I don't care about that shit. That shit is boring to me. I have always said that stuff is dull and not really as effective as people like to think it is. But I've been challenged on that. Like, I'm just a moron who needs a Tony to be engaged in the Survivor. So it's really weird that Tommy is clearly playing a very good social game. He's doing the things that people are always like criticizing the players that I like. He's keeping the target off of himself. He's letting somebody else take the strategic lead so that they're a bigger target. He's not winning challenges. Oh, it's so stupid when those guys go out there and win challenges and get voted out. He's not doing any of those things. And all people can say is how lame a winner he's going to be. And on that, I can agree, because I hate those kind of those winners. But y'all out there have been telling me for years that that's what you love. And now you're getting it. And I'm not feeling the love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like largely with you, so I don't have like a big response to that. But I mean, I think at least like the thing too is that maybe this is the issue for those people, is that there's no real foil. There's no crazy idol plant, big move type.
They hate big moves.
No, I know.
Big moves are for fucking casuals.
We're not done talking. I was in the middle of my fucking point. That there isn't a foil like that for them to like offset it. Like, oh, well, this person is doing all these crazy bits. All they're doing is finding idols. We much prefer Tommy, who's doing the social plays. All they have as a foil are like the goats and the like actively bad humans.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's like, would
have been a great point to say.
There's
all
no Devons to make, Victoria's superior behind the scenes game look so good. Yeah, like, because like, why is Tommy still in this game? Because he made a strong connection with Dean. So Dean will do something stupid and not overthrow Tommy. Elaine would rather keep Tommy in the game than Missy, the person she's been working with all season. Though isn't that such a sign of such a superior game? Oh no, Tommy isn't that good. Lauren is the real genius, is the things that people are saying that I don't even necessarily disagree with, except that I'm the person who's had to endure forever the fact that like Boston Rob sucks and he lost to Amber, the real power and strategic thinker. Like, y'all are telling on yourselves big time. And I'm fine to be like, I'm not interested in a Tommy win. It does not excite me because I've never tried to celebrate this like type of gameplay. Everybody else tried to sell me on that this is what they really like. This is what Survivor really is. And now he's out there doing it. And all people can talk about is how he's really not that great. Interesting is all I'm saying. So, I'm not defending Tommy's game. Tommy's game is as boring as Adam's. And it might be as effective. In the end, I think he will, succeed in always having a better target than him. It's in part because they actually are. And then he's gonna go up against people that are much worse than him, and that's how he'll win. I don't think he's beating Lauren in the finals. I don't think that this current jury we have is being like, oh yeah, no, I mean, what are you gonna do? We always favor the men. Like, look at the jury we've got. Like, I think they would, unless they have personal beef with Lauren. They seem to, from the reports I'm hearing in Ponderosa, want like a strong woman to win. Now he's gonna beat the losers of the season, and people will be like, of course he won. He's doing the stuff you wanted him to do, the stuff you've always said that the big dumb alpha male should do to keep the target off of himself, and nobody respects it.
Yeah, I think, and you touched on this, and we had talked about this earlier today. I think you're seeing all these people complaining about how, Tommy's gonna win and how unfair that he'll beat Lauren. And I think they're just assuming that just because they're paired that they're gonna bring each other to the end, which, I don't think is
never
the case.
Happens.
And also, we could very easily see them both be the one, they could, say Noura manages to win out or something. She's been decent at challenges. This is purely hypothetical. Yeah. And like they could face each other in fire making, mm-hmm. Like there are so many ways that just Tommy could be there. And the reason we're seeing, and it's the edit that's making him look like the winner and Lauren not because he's gonna like make her a 0 vote finalist, but because she's not gonna be there. And I think, at least Adam had some major players like to, slay at the end, which not only helped the season, but also I think made his win while his game was still not, one of the strongest of the winners. At least there were some pelts, like at least there was somebody he, defeated, with the help of obviously like, Hannon can eventually turn on David after he tried to do that forever, which is kind of a Sandra thing with, except she never did get out Russell. Mm-hmm. But like, you had like David lasted till 4, like you had Jay at 6, even Brett probably, might have been able to pull some votes because he was so likable. Whereas mm-hmm. at this point, we've like Lauren's kind of the only, you have Elaine in sort of the Brett role maybe, and that they're really likable and on the outside. So if they somehow get there, and obviously we really like and respect Janet, but I don't know, they don't have that information that we have of why we all want Janet to win. Mm-hmm. So it might not be viewed that way, and we're not really seeing it from the like purely gameplay part of that. There's not a David or even a Jay in the game right now. The people who maybe could have been those type of players went out early on in the merge. And so now we're left with kind of these, the people who are the threats, quote unquote, are not that threatening, which I think serves to make, eventual winner Tommy seem even more boring than it otherwise would be.
I'll say Janet was awesome even before the merge.
For
so
sure,
I could see people respecting her that way. Like, frankly, we were always like, hey, man, people really respect Janet. So, like, I think if she got there, I think she would be a real threat.
Yeah, I think she and Lauren are the bigger people to get rid of.
Tommy's playing, like, a risk-averse, working with his allies, behind-the-scenes social game. Sophie did that, and I think people love her for that. She never really had to take out anybody but awesome until Ozzy went back in the game. It's just, apparently that type of game is only respected when it's by a certain type of player. I don't know. Like, and I've said this before, that like people who like are viewed a certain way are typically expected to behave a certain way, and like in Survivor itself, right? Like Mick doesn't get any respect sitting at Final Tribal Council, for doing what, somebody else might need to do. They're like, yeah, you dithering fool, why didn't you do that? And it's just like Tommy is that. But, again, like, I think he's going to win because he'll go up against, like, Dean or Dan or Noura or something. Like, it's really, like, this is what happens. And yeah, like, the people, like, thinking he's going to beat Lauren, like, when do the two best ever go up against each other? Like, it's rare. It's, and frankly, it only happens a little bit more because of fire making, which, is the worst thing ever. It's just like, yeah, like, again, like, I'm not defending Tommy's game. It is mediocre and middle of the road. I just thought that that's what y'all liked. Like, that's what I was been told this whole time. That's what the true fans, it's about the notes you don't hear, is the true, Survivor, like, success. You guys aren't supposed to need all that, big moves. This is what Tommy, man. Y'all should be riding for him. So Karishma went home. Any final thoughts about Karishma?
I think the idea of her winning was unlikely because unfortunately, even if she really turned it, like she was already turning it around a little bit from a, gameplay as much as she could in the sort of underdog role. But I think the problem is she was in a position socially that no matter what she did, these people were not going to respect her. They were not going to be willing to admit that they got beat by Karishma. We've seen this in sort of second place people before who maybe played better games overall, but people just couldn't handle being beaten by someone like that. I think entertainment wise and like likability wise, I have not had this big of a turnaround on someone in a while. Because, I mean, we had talked about this early on. I thought, like, I mean, I felt for her, but early on, just so much of it seemed a little self-fulfilling. You know, I think that she just, like, sort of the attitude thing of, like, I'm not going to fit in, and so she didn't fit in type thing. But, you know, when she's talking about, like, oh, yeah, like, I loved her line, or because I thought it was also good gameplay and it was entertaining when the four are left behind, you know, for the loved one's visit. And she's like, yeah, you know, it's really hard when you know on the bottom, like, that's something I've experienced. And I really feel for the people who are learning this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
like,
good.
I thought that was great. You know, I thought she did about as well as she could in this episode, you know, which I guess is a little bit of like, but how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah, maybe damning with a bit of praise.
Faint
Praise,
yeah.
That's the word I was trying to go for, and then I just skipped past it. Yeah, I thought she did as well as she could. She went home.
Yeah, but yeah, I think with the card, you know, I think some of the cards she maybe dealt herself early on, but I think, you know, once she kind of started turning around, she did the best that was kind of possible. And I think once she had fight in her, I really enjoyed watching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although interestingly, like I think the debut of the more spirited fight for herself Karishma moment was also a bit of her downfall, at least in terms of, you know, placement, which ultimately, who cares, right? Like, is losing now any much worse than being a no vote finalist? Probably not.
I mean, the check's better, but
yeah, but you know, marginally. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand your taxes. Oh, it's a country that taxes like nothing, but winnings on game shows. That seems to be like the only like rate that people have to pay high taxes for. Whereas here we tax everything except for winnings and contests. Those are completely tax free. Now the winnings are usually like a Timbits or something.
Jeff Kent's like, God damn it! Why didn't I play Survivor in Canada?
Yeah, I only played baseball there, where he probably had to, you know, pay lots of taxes because he started with the Blue Jays. Yeah, like my Karishma thoughts are, I think she got a fairly interesting, complex edit. I'm not willing to completely be Team Karishma because I think, she did it was probably a mix. She probably ostracized herself. And I don't have a hard time believing that some of these people weren't particularly empathic or nice about it. And then it becomes this thing, right? Like, maybe she was feeling that from them. And then, she starts acting the way she is. And then she just becomes this annoyance to everybody. Because, the person who, doesn't contribute to challenges, doesn't contribute to camp, doesn't contribute, probably tough to be around. My solution, of course, to that is always vote them out. Just vote them out. Get rid of them, and then you don't have to deal with this. If you're not going to vote them out, then you don't need to be shitty to them.
Which is, I think, something you talked about during, again, Co-Wrong, with Alicia. It was like, sure, maybe she doesn't fit with the Braun tribe and isn't helping or whatever, but, don't be dicks. Just vote her out. You don't have to, keep this person around if she bugs you so much and isn't doing well, So, yeah, I agree with that. I think, it ends up being good for her that they didn't, because instead of being an unfortunate pre-merge footnote, she's, kind of, she's a pretty major character in this. And it, probably was hard for her, but I think she among a lot of the post-merge cast comes out looking a lot better than some of them. So.
And, I read a bit of her exits. It does seem like she had a really tough time out there. And again, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know whose side to take. I can't take any sides. I wasn't there. But, I'll say, to her, it felt real. And that's really unfortunate. The isolation and all of that. I think some of it does underline that, this game probably just wasn't for her. But in the end, she did some things. So... yeah. I think she should be somewhat. I think she should be proud of that, and
she got to play an idol correctly.
Yep, possibly the only person this season who will.
Technically, Dean did, but he had to be told and given one. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's his greatest hit so far. And here's the thing: unless Kelly spills the beans, that'll be everybody will believe it. Oh, but I'm sure she has.
Yeah, and
well,
you know what I
has she
realized?
though? Has she like been out there telling everybody, "Oh, yeah, Jack, it was totally my fault, and I had this huge plan." Maybe I don't know. I don't.
Oh yeah, I think actually she did tell Jack and Jamal. I remember that because I watched their Ponderosas. But actually, speaking of Dean, if you don't mind me doing a quick little sidebar, as I realized, and this is, because you were saying like the greatest hits or whatever being like an idol he was handed, is that I had the sinking realization that the stupid legacy advantage is going to work. It's not going to work, obviously, because he'll play it and it won't be real, but everyone... They're not gonna vote for him. Oh, actually, wait, never mind.
No, they think he played it.
Yeah, they think he played it. Because I was thinking, like, everyone will know they have to... But unless he tells them, like, hey, just kidding, like, I actually, had one... That's what he should do, because it's not a real advantage, but he doesn't know... Sweet, never mind. Now I'm stoked again because he might play that. And I don't know why anyone would vote him out, but it would be so funny.
Oh no, that's my hope now. This is on my list of hopes. Is that he gets voted out, and the one that he was saving his fake advantage for, right? And all of his trickery results in like, oh well, we don't need to keep him around this time because we know his advantage. He doesn't have one. That'd be pretty funny. Another hit on Tommy's amazing social gameplay that, is really underappreciated and only the real fans could know it. Dean voted out Kelly because Tommy broke up with him. Oh my god, it's all about that. It's not about these big moves. It's not about Kelly, finding two idols and doing crazy stuff, getting rid of Jack and saving Dean. It's about the small interpersonal moments. That's what we, as Survivor fans, really appreciate.
Although I do think at a certain point, a lot of that is just Dean being who he is. Finally, there's a Tommy to hang out with, someone who, I belong with. This is who I should be spending my time with, not, I can't be seen hanging out with Karishma and Elaine and Noura. They're be so losers. Embarrassing.
That's the GOAT army. Yeah, but bravo to Tommy, the master social game player, that, again, you only really notice these things if you can appreciate the real subtlety of Survivor for recognizing that and, bringing that kind of person in. That's usually what I'm told in these scenarios. Hey, so a lot of people, frankly, like, it's, speaking of the Kelly Dean moment, and, Kelly herself was talking about how dumb these moves are, which was both, very smart, cathartic, the cover of this episode, but also a bit like, Kelly, really? We want to be talking about stupid moves here? A lot of people point to that moment of her, voting out Jack instead of Dean as like, a turning point of where, things fell apart for a lot of the people we like. The other moment. We all know what moment killed this season. But in terms of like gameplay moments.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about an earlier moment. Because it was something, frankly, I thought of when Karishma was talking about how isolated and how mean everybody was. It was a bunch of cutthroat players and nobody could care about her, bleeding out and dying or whatever. You remember earlier in the season when Molly, Jack, and Jamal were presented as the mean, cool kids that were successfully toppled by the outcasts, the misfits of, like, Lost Toys or whatever?
I sure do.
How much better would this season have been if they weren't?
Probably much. I actually, and this is so funny because I similarly had a thought about, like, if Molly was still around, but at a completely different point of the episode than you. It was like when Noura was flipping out, I said to the person next to me, like, this is why, like, they should have voted on Noura and not Molly.
But yeah, like, they were edited as these arrogant jerks because, Noura was saying that they were the cool kids. And then Lauren is like, oh, good, we can get rid of her because she's too pretty and she's Parvati. And then people are like, yeah, look at those arrogant jerks. And then it kind of turns out that, like, Jack and Jamal were probably, like, two of the very nicest people in this game. It's probably not a hard leap to go to that, Molly might have also been. She seemed kind of nice. In fact, isn't that why she was attacked? Just because she was too nice to people? Would this have been a nicer season if, like, they just voted out Noura and Molly and Jack and Jamal would have been able to, move forward?
Yeah, and I mean, it seemed like Jamal was never in with Dan, so that would have been nice. And like, Molly, also kind of might have been nice to have around in that moment because from what we did see, seems like someone who takes that shit seriously.
She confirmed those things with Kelly. She talked about it to Janet, too. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yep, I mean, you and I were both against that move at the start, and sweet vindication.
That's right. I mean, I think it's pretty much guaranteed we were right here. And it's just so funny because like, the edit's like, oh, those people really suck. It's like, actually, the people that moved against them were actually the shitty people. Those are the shitty people, and they took out the nice people. Awesome. All right, so this is usually the time that we do advice, and I guess we have a question that's kind of advice. It's more of a question, but you could spin it very easily into advice. It's the one email we got, and frankly, this might be the very last advice segment we do, because apparently asking your audience to do your work for you, isn't as easy as you'd think it is.
At least our audience has the same work ethic that we do.
Again, I'm not angry about it. I respect it.
It's nice
also,
to be understood.
I get people just being like, man, I don't care about the season. Like, you can't make me care.
And on that note,
guys. I'm very much the definition of a lurker, but enjoy the site and the podcast. Me too. Anyway, I have a question, kind of for the advice portion of the pod, but kind of just a question for you guys in general. With everything that happened in the merge episode of this season and its fallout, how do you not let it wreck anticipation for season 40? Is it possible to view the two seasons as separate entities, or does season 39 impact the lens season 40 is viewed in, at least in the pre-early game? Thanks for everything, Zach. What do you think?
Well, it depends on how we are playing what is going on in season 40, and I can't remember what we landed on.
All right, well, here's the thing. What I would say is it will take they need to pull out something interesting for season 40. We, of course, have no idea what the plans are for season 40, but to really get us back on board, they'd have to do something crazy.
And I think, having a fresh start is appealing. Having, a different cast, who maybe we feel like we can trust due to, information we may or may not already have. At least with some of them, we might feel better about. I think the problem is, and what makes it harder to maybe be as excited, is that we know that production, at least while filming, thought they did this right, thought they did everything right. The good news is, at least in the editing process, or maybe any post-editing, after, is that they now know, hopefully, if they've been paying any attention, that they did it wrong. And if there is anything, and God forbid, if there is anything, that is an issue, hopefully they will have dealt with it, at least on the post-production side, in a better way. But, also we've had, well, I was going to say we've had 38 seasons without that being a problem, but that's not really true.
Not
but
true.
It's been...
It's also not true that we're like, oh, well, these are... If they had a cast of returnees, we couldn't, they know how to comport themselves. But yeah, again, not so much.
Not always the case. We've seen that in returning seasons. But it's been at least... Oh, well, it's not commonplace. It has happened, but it's not commonplace. It's not as common in the modern era either. In terms of being like a production-wide thing and not like one bad actor. So if there's something that, hypes us up enough, maybe a fun twist, an interesting gimmick, that helps. But it does, for me at least, really dampen my view of how of not the cast, but how the production handles it, because I think, coming off the merge, I was very down on a large portion of the cast, and that's still true to a point. But I think as the time has gone on, and, we've learned more, and obviously some people could be covering their asses, but, some of the stuff, kind of corroborates with what I was already thinking about certain things, makes me a little more understanding of the cast, if how the meeting, etc. went is really what they've been saying. It makes me way less forgiving of production. So that's kind of tough, because the cast changes and production doesn't.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the big problems is that production doesn't. Obviously, they have new employees every once in a while. We all know, the casting director change, that sort of thing. But I think a big part of this is the entropy that sets in of people that are doing this all the time, that they couldn't look on this situation and be like, whoa, 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 that's not the way it's done. No, they're just so stuck in their mindset of, we're hands off and the show must go on. And those, I think, are the most dangerous parts of this, is that they couldn't recognize that what was happening was more than, this is a bigger deal. And also they couldn't recognize that, like, oh, this is a situation where we need to interfere, because they're just so used to it. And again, yeah, it's going to be the same people. It's going to be the same people without having, as you've said, the benefit of seeing this play out for an audience, because it's already been filmed. All that's already happened. So it does. And the last time I was on, it was just kind of like, the question is like, what if Survivor has just always been bad in this way? It is, in its core, in many ways, a mean idea, a mean show. And that has started to make me question all about it. But yeah, generally the benefit is you do get a refresh, and that the cast themselves do have a great impact of what a season's going to be. But yeah, I can't fault anybody who, whatever season 40 ends up being. I don't know why we got into this gimmick of pretending like we don't know, but we're riding it out. That's just what we do here. One person makes a stupid joke and it's like, all right, well, if even if it's a lie, we fight on the lie. That's how we're going to go. But I understand if you're feeling anticipation's down. I understand if you can't get back into the existing season. The one thing I'll say is, if you've gone this far, you got to at least see what's going on for 40 if something major is. Give it the chance. And frankly, if that doesn't do it for you, you're done.
That is, I think, personally where I'm at. I'm like, you and I also are in the apparently unique position from, what I've seen of the community fandom at large. Community as Survivor community, fandom as in Survivor fandom, not the community fandom, which brings me back to college. But we are in kind of a surprisingly unique position of being people who started from the beginning and have been watching straight for 19, almost 20 years of this show every season. And that hits differently than these people who have, and this is not shady and we are the only true fans. The newcomers probably know more than we do because they remember the early seasons. I don't remember a lot of, from early seasons. But I think in terms of it being harder to give up is different because, we've been watching, I've been watching this show for almost 2/3 of my life,
Yeah.
And obviously we care enough to do this, and it's this major thing. And so, yeah, I'm very much as I'm excited for 40. I'm hoping it's more of a Cambodia than a Game Changers, more of a heroes versus villains than an All-Stars. But if it goes bad, I don't know if I can keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's so much other TV that's great,
Yeah, no, everybody's putting out their best of the decade list, and we talked about this, would Survivor make our list? And some of that is a reflection that this hasn't been the most shining 10 season span. I haven't done enough to look at the 10 years of this decade. But frankly, even just Survivor's never been my top favorite show, right? Despite the fact that I do this. But besides my family and some friends, this is one of the longest relationships of my life. It's been almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
So to just make that break, and all the things that the extras that I put into it, and obviously it gives me in my entertainment life, that'd be a tough break to make. That said, I did walk away from fantasy football after 15 years because I couldn't stomach what, being an NFL fan was. So it's in play, and I think it's fine that it's in play. Now, I don't know that I'm gonna try to drop it to score rewards and points. Everybody oh wow, that guy's really committed to the cause, because nobody will fucking care. Once I stop doing this, that'll be it. Nobody will be oh god, everything was so much better when Andy was around. No, people move on. The people in my fantasy football league aren't talking about, I wish Andy was still there. So it will only be because I want to, or just is it just the recognition that this thing is poisoned and it can't be recovered. Because I hope that we found an hour's worth of, entertainment talking about this. But our ultimate reaction to all of this, that frankly started off with, I wasn't that upset about Dean because I just didn't believe it, is that we don't care. Like, I found a way to get back to caring with the little rant I did earlier, and it was kind of like a fun return to normalcy. But I just don't care what happens this season. And if Survivor does that to me again, then, that might be a fine note to walk out on.
Yeah, and what a nice round number it would be too. It's like, because I agree. I've being in LA and stuff, I've had the opportunity to go to various like gatherings that have included both Survivor players and very big fans. And like, man, you think you're a super fan until you go to one of these things. Mm-hmm. And have had people express shock when I like said like Survivor isn't my favorite show, And it's not like I love it, and obviously I don't have this level of like community and fandom around any other shows, and that's just kind of how I think it's just the nature of what this show is and kind of how it happened. But it's like, far be it from me to make a food analogy, but it's like cereal isn't like my favorite food, but I have it almost every day, and it's a constant that I, can usually count on. And sometimes you're like, oh man, I'm so in the mood for a bowl of cereal. And sometimes it's just like, oh, I gotta eat breakfast, but so it would be an adjustment to never have it again. But there's plenty of other good things to, satiate you.
Yeah. No, like I was already complaining, like, oh my God, Maisel's already back on Friday. I have so many shows I haven't caught up with. So
I use an app, man. I use an app to keep track of my shows.
Yeah, well, like Survivor is even 1 hour out of my week, or like I get several hours out of my week. When you factor in this and all the community. But again, like that's also what Survivor gives me, right? But it's like if it's not fun anymore, then you shouldn't do it. That's eventually what's like, why do we, not only do I have to look down on all these things that are against, what I stand for by playing fantasy football, but the other thing is it makes me miserable more often than not. Yeah. Right. So it's like, why? Why would I do this? And, if Survivor keeps going that way, then, But so I would just say, what we all know about season 40 will get you excited. So it's worth giving that shot, and then it'll just be a question of, can you let aside the fact that we know that this show makes this. Now, here's another thing that could help. Maybe, I'm not expecting this. Maybe they come out and actually acknowledge the mistakes they made.
Right. If there was any real, I can't think of the word, but, real...
acknowledgement?
Maybe. I did not sleep much last night. But yeah, like if they really, let's just say acknowledge it and reconcile it and make actually commit to making a change, that will make a big difference. It's the difference between someone saying, I'm sorry for using, such and such a slur or whatever, and then say I'm sorry, I didn't know, I will make sure to remove that from my vocabulary. You can say you're sorry, and
I'm going to speak to people to really understand these things. Yeah, it's again, if they were to really apologize, talk about measures that they're going to take in the future to prevent this. Again, those measures would not be in place for 40 unless somehow they said, oh, we recognize it was a thing and we put that in place. Then maybe you could start to forgive, because, it's like they made a huge mistake. Mistakes aren't don't have to be the last thing. So that could help too. Again, I'm not necessarily expecting it. In fact, I'm not expecting it. But if that would go a long way, I would say. All right, let's finish this one off by predicting who's going home next.
Elaine, probably.
Yeah. Why?
Because she is, of the people not in the major alliance, the one who can actually beat the people in the major alliance.
Yeah. So I'll say, in the preview, we get a hint of Tommy talking about, having to turn on Lauren. I don't think that's happening yet. Frankly, I think, for one, it would be the kind of risky move that Tommy has not exhibited any stomach for doing. Because, again, he understands how Survivor is supposed to be really played. He's not into the big moves like, you noobs really care about. But also, it would be too soon. People leaving himself wide open for attack.
Yep.
But I think he starts
I
to
think
see
it's-
that because that's what will eventually happen is, you know,
Right.
they will make a move against each other in one way or another. He's going to come out on top because the edit tells me so. So in that respect, yeah, Elaine's the most dangerous player. They're going to go after her. Bonus prediction. I think Noura goes to the Island of the Idols.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, because I see her in the preview spinning around, and then the challenge.
Oh yeah, and the challenge. That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since we've actually seen the Island of the Idols. Wow, what a great and fruitful twist this has been.
Just last week, Lauren went. We just, you know, they go away from 1 week, and all we can talk about is where are Rob and Sandra.
It's because they bring actual joy.
Yes. Remember the Halcyon days when Halcyon, that's probably the way it's pronounced, when we thought the season would be ruined by too much Rob and Sandra? I miss those days.
We were so young, so naive.
I know. Frankly, I miss the days when Survivor was ruining itself by letting, you know, people
come back.
Yeah.
What we wouldn't fucking give for Agent Extinction right now, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh man, Molly or Jamal or Kelly could be coming back. That's all we care about. Yeah. I mean, frankly, like, when everybody was upset about that, and again, I was like, yeah, it turned out really bad, but it was like, wouldn't it have, like, Game Changers have been better that way, too?
Yeah.
It's just always a careful what you wish for type deal. But how I could see it happening that Noura goes is reward. It's Team Pick'em, and nobody picks her.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although it would be dumb on their part, because challenges is what she's been
good at, but it's like, do I want to win a reward and hang out with Noura? No, thanks. It's a price
also
too far.
fair. Also fair.
All right. Anything else?
I will say, so yeah, I went to Know It Alls.
You went to a thing.
Yeah, so I went to Know It Alls. Got to, you know, they it's at the Improv, so they like seat you. You don't just like fill in. So it's like, oh, you're alone? Okay. Here's a table of other people who are alone. But, you know, got to chatting, made some friends. Eventually it got out because people were sort of asking about stuff and fandom and stuff. So I revealed the podcast. So maybe we have a couple new listeners. Probably not. But
if we do, they left right around the Tommy rant.
Oh, for sure. But at the after party, I did actually meet a listener, not someone who's in our comment community, although he should consider joining. But quick shout out to Chase and his friend Carter, because that was cool. Yeah, it was just like a genuine, like I've had people kind of spot me from like the Twitter avatar, you know, just like people I've talked to on Twitter, and our branding is good, is strong, and I look pretty much like my cartoon avatar. So, but this, I think, like, I've turned around. I think it was largely just the voice, and it's like, hey, you Purple Rock Emma, or Emma from Purple Rock Podcast, more likely, is probably what he said, and that was neat. And yeah, he's been listening since like Worlds Apart. So thanks for sticking around. That was fun. That is not something I don't think any of us have experienced. Obviously, John and I think are really the only ones who've like been in the position where that could happen. But it was cool. And yeah,
I'd be horrified if anybody recognized me, because it would just be like on the street or like in a new job or something.
Right? Yeah. Like I forgot. Like when I told you, I think I forgot. I don't think Mark knew I was going to Know It All. And it was just like, yeah. If it was just like walking around, that would be like, oh my god. But in a Survivor context, it was fun. Yeah, and it was nice. You know, it's nice to know that we actually have people listening beyond the, like, doesn't, you know, the community of whom we love, but like among the community online that we have, you know, because you kind of assume that's like the bubble. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, nobody believes me when I say we have a whole lot of uncommenting listeners, but it's true. The numbers suggest, unless all of y'all are like downloading this 5 to 8 times, there are more. And we appreciate you all. Yeah, that's cool. So it was a good time. How are the spirits of the community right now?
You know, there would be a lot of, like, people would be talking and then kind of be like, but yeah. You know, I talked to Steven and was like, man, you got lucky, you got on vacation. And he was like, yup. Yeah, I didn't talk to a ton of the actual survivors who were there because most of them I'd met before. And, you know, a lot of people, like, travel for these things, and I don't, and I'm in town, so, you know, I want to let people have their moment. But although Bradley did share that Chris Noble was about as difficult to live with as you'd expect.
It's always good to hear that your heroes are what they think they're.
Yeah, so that was fun. But he says, like, but, just in the real world for, like, 3 hours, great. But for, like, 24 hours, all day, every day, a nightmare. Sorry if that's blowing up your spot, but neither of them are listening, so I'm not concerned.
No, this isn't their season. There's no way they're listening to this.
Yeah, I thanked Rob because I thought he did a really good job with his coverage with all the merge stuff, and he was like, oh yeah, just, was like, oh, I better book some guests who know what they're talking about. And honestly, like, that is what you do. And I don't mean like our country. We don't have those resources, obviously. But like, if, it's like you're in a position where it's like, this is not my experience that you can speak on, giving that platform to other people is like a total ally move. So he's also definitely not listening, but just wanted to, throw out some more respect his way because, I mean, he's like killing the game. Someone, when I was talking to Steven, because I had just told this person who I was like randomly seated next to at the event about the podcast and stuff, and he was like, oh, you're like Steven's competition. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I couldn't think of an analogy, and the best I could get would be like, we're his competition in the sense that, like, a self-published author is J.K. Rowling's competition. But then Steven said something about that being, like, E.L. James, so that we are apparently the 50 Shades of Grey of Survivor podcast, so I'm so sorry.
You know what? I respect it. I can see it, really. I mean, I don't know if everybody else could, but that's because they are not privy to our Slack, and we would not like that code.
No, we will never break Slack code.
It's a mutually assured destruction pact. No, that sounds cool. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I don't think I'll ever make it to one of those things. But like there are times when I think it could be fun. Ultimately, It's just a matter of, using up what little vacation time or resources I have so I could go like hang out with people who watch a TV show. I don't know if I could get to that level.
Oh, I mean, I feel, I only go because I live, near the, and I almost didn't go to this because it was 30 miles away.
That's right. It's like the valley. Ugh.
It's in Orange County, man. Also, 30 miles, but leaving at 5:30 is more like an hour and 45 minutes. So.
Well, and I should quickly clarify, that was no judgment to people who have used their, vacation time or resources. It's just like, I get to go on like maybe 1, maybe 2 vacations a year. I should probably make those family vacations. And like, hey kids, we're all going to a bar to watch a show that you've never seen before. It's not really a deal, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, everything where these things are held, they're like twice as expensive for me because of our fake paper money. So there you go.
Yeah, and if you don't, sorry, I should stop. But yeah, like if you don't live, like I live in a major city, like going to another major city is not like as much of like a cool thing. Whereas like if you don't, then it's like, oh, cool, I've never been to. I got lucky that unfortunately it turned out for me that I went to New York literally the day after the New York know-it-alls. But if you are able to make your own travel plans because you're not like beholden to family members, and children or whatever and other people's work schedules. And it's like, oh, I've never been to that city and like make a whole trip out of it. Like, yeah, that totally sounds bomb.
Yep. So there you go. Just wait until we have the live Purple Rock taping. And, what kind of venue could we like reasonably expect to get? Like your kitchen, right?
That's bar. Basically. No, like a restaurant, like private room that you like have to rent out, like that. For, like very like a courthouse, that you do if like you have a courthouse wedding and then you like have your family.
I mean, like, I've booked event spaces, so I could find something if, like, we could get John to, negotiate. But, yeah, no, and then it would be so sad. It would be like, like us, my brother-in-law, maybe my wife if she has the night off. It wouldn't be good. Okay, so that's enough for this week. I'm going to play some music, unless you're one of the, like, hundreds of people who listen on YouTube, in which case you're not going to hear anything because we don't want copyright restrictions. Anything else from you?
No, that's it. Oh, follow me at Purple Rock Emma.
Oh, yeah, you can also follow me at Purple Rock Andy, the show at Purple Rock Pod. That's pretty much all you really need. The other ones.
And the website, purplerockpodcast.com.
That's where these these listeners, these lurkers, and the people you've met, that's where you should visit. That's where the real Hinge is. You subscribe on the different podcasts. As I mentioned, we're on YouTube. And me and John next week.